My spouse, age 41, and I, age 46, were married for 18 years until our sex life started to lose its spark. Our twins had grown up and were attending college, and I had hoped that once they moved out, our sex life would improve. However, although there was a brief uptick in activity, having sex in the same places around the house at the same times became monotonous. We found some advice online that suggested taking a vacation with friends without one spouse could help reignite passion and desire. Additionally, flirting with each other could also help create a longing for intimacy. Initially, I was doubtful about the idea of taking separate vacations, but I noticed how enthusiastic my wife was about it, which was rare in recent times. We started planning our individual trips accordingly. My wife and her friends chose Colorado as their destination, which included a visit to the town where she grew up. As far as I knew, her childhood memories there weren't particularly positive, so I was taken aback by her decision to go there without me. On the other hand, I opted to travel with my friends to Wyoming, since I had always wanted to explore Yellowstone National Park. Once we had purchased our tickets, I noticed that my wife began to spend a lot of time texting on her phone. Assuming that she was just coordinating with her friends and discussing their upcoming trip, I didn't want to disturb her. I texted my own friends in the meantime, but we didn't have much to talk about. At one point, I asked my wife for a copy of their itinerary, but her response was unexpected. She seemed caught off guard and mentioned that she needed to make some edits because the first draft had some date mix-ups. Eventually, she handed me a printed copy of the updated itinerary. The itinerary for my wife's vacation with her friends included a series of activities that I perceived as feminine, such as yoga, shopping, hiking, indulging in yogurt treats, and dining at restaurants. However, after 3 days of her 6-day vacation had passed, I found myself missing her a lot. Although I was enjoying myself, the thought of being away from her for 6 days suddenly felt too long. Additionally, my wife had stopped responding to my messages, which made me quite worried. I shared my concerns with my friends, who advised me to relax and make the most of my time in a new place. Despite trying to heed their advice, my wife's responses to my texts continued to be odd and unusual. My wife's responses to my messages seemed indifferent, as though she didn't care about what I had to say and was only responding out of obligation. This made me feel terrible, and I became increasingly worried. That evening, my wife's itinerary placed her and her friends at a restaurant 6 hours away from where my friends and I were located. Determined to surprise her, I began driving at 1 p.m., hoping to arrive by 7 p.m. When I finally reached the restaurant, I was met by my wife's friends, who appeared shocked to see me there. I asked them about my wife's whereabouts, but their response was devastating. She had left them to meet up with someone else. I felt crushed and collapsed onto a nearby chair, where they proceeded to reveal even more unsettling information to me. According to her friends, my wife had been on her phone until the morning when she left without waking anyone up. She had only sent them a message saying she wouldn't be back until late that day. When I asked her friends if she had mentioned anything else about who she was meeting or where she was going, one of them handed me a small slip of paper. She explained that my wife had given it to her for safety reasons in case she didn't return on time for their flight home. My wife had instructed her friend not to tell anyone, especially not me, about where she was going. The slip of paper contained an address. Since I had shown up unexpectedly and expressed my concern, my wife's friend was persuaded to tell me the truth about the slip of paper. I thanked her for the information and quickly went to my car. The friend, named Jade, caught up to me and asked if she could come along. I agreed, as I needed someone else to help balance out my panic. During the drive, Jade shared information about her family, hobbies, and work, which helped distract me. However, as we arrived at the address written on the slip of paper, my worry resurfaced. It was a house, and although there were no cars in the driveway at 8 p.m., I couldn't shake my unease. Then, just before 9 p.m., a car pulled into the driveway. As the driver's seat emptied, my wife emerged from the passenger side. I stepped out of the vehicle with Jade and Tao and called out, "Hey, honey." My wife jumped, turning towards me with a shocked expression. Her mouth hung agape as she demanded to know why I was there and why I was with Jade. I explained that she was there for emotional support, as I was unsure of what I might find. Turning to the unfamiliar man, I asked him who he was. He boldly declared himself to be my wife's lifelong friend and new lover. Enraged, I punched him in the face. My wife screamed and rushed to his defense. My wife yelled out that the man didn't know we were married. I retorted, asking whose fault that was. She confessed that she deliberately kept it from him. I pressed on, asking if this was all part of her plan from the beginning. She refused to answer, and even had the audacity to tell me that I shouldn't have come. She then turned to Jade and accused her of being a snitch. I interjected, explaining that Jade only told me because she shared my concern for my wife's well-being. After all, I had driven 6 hours to find her. This trip was intended to rekindle our intimacy and give my wife an opportunity to miss me while reminiscing about our relationship. Instead, she used this time to meet up with a man from her past. I informed my wife that she was no longer welcome at our home and that our relationship was over. I had trusted her to be loyal and used this time to strengthen our bond, but instead she chose to destroy it. I was in disbelief. As I ranted, her audacious lover began to curse at Jade and me, demanding that we leave. He urged my wife to go inside. She made eye contact with me for a mere 4 seconds before apologizing and following him into the house. In just 4 seconds, my wife had made the decision to abandon our 18-year relationship, leaving me standing in another man's yard. I returned to the car with Jade and headed back to the restaurant. She expressed her regret for what had happened and offered to keep me company when I got home, to which I graciously accepted. Once she returned to her car, I embarked on the long drive home. I called my twin sons and close male friends to inform them of what had happened. They offered their unwavering sympathy and support during my time of need. In the following weeks, Jade visited me at least twice a week, offering her company and comfort during this difficult period. I was deeply grateful for Jade's unwavering support, just as much as I appreciated the continual check-ins from my sons and friends, whether over the phone or in person. My sons made it clear that they could never see their mother in the same light again. Though they maintained contact with her over the phone, they focused on their studies and didn't feel obligated to change their lives to help her in any way. One of my wife's mutual friends revealed to Jade that her latest partner had broken up with her after just 4 months, citing her clinginess as the reason. It must have been a painful experience for her, given that she had been married for 18 years. It's understandable that she would become clingy to him. It's possible that she sought emotional reassurance that she had made the right decision, which unfortunately only drove him away. I couldn't help but wonder what her future held, although I didn't put much effort into finding out. It wasn't until a year later when I decided to check my old email address and discovered that my wife had been sending me emails during that entire time. The content of her messages varied from being extremely angry with me to displaying complete desperation for my response and love. To be honest, I felt a sense of relief that I didn't come across those emails until a year later, as by then I had already started a romantic relationship with Jade and wasn't tempted to reconcile with my wife after her betrayal. I hope my story serves as a reminder to people not to cheat, and for those who have experienced betrayal to know that it's okay to feel hurt, but it's not the end of the world. Life goes on, and there is hope for a brighter future. Despite the upheaval in my wife's life, she was presented with an opportunity to transform herself into a better person. It's truly remarkable, and I'm deeply moved by her resilience. I empathize with you, OP, and I'm sorry that you had to endure the painful experience of being betrayed by your partner of many years. You stepped out of your comfort zone in an effort to improve your marriage, but unfortunately your wife made a selfish choice by meeting another man. I'm sorry that she didn't recognize the value and importance of reigniting the spark in your long-standing and successful marriage. The woman made a heartbreaking decision to abandon the man she had spent 18 years with and who was the father of her children, all for a fleeting romance that lasted just 4 months. It's a cautionary tale for everyone. Please do not make the same mistake. Perhaps she shared with AP her story of feeling unfulfilled in her sex life and mentioned that she would be in town for a few days. To AP, it might have seemed like an opportunity to have sex without any commitment. We can only speculate on what promises he made, but it appears that as soon as she left her long-term partner for him, he proved to be incapable of providing her with the stability she had grown accustomed to. The key takeaway from this situation is to avoid engaging in sexual activity with anyone who is not your long-term partner. Sex is meant to be a special expression of love and commitment, But when it occurs with the wrong person or at the wrong time, it can lead to trouble. Instead of seeking external sources of excitement, the best way to add some spark to your relationship with your long term partner is through communication. Try exploring new ways to express your desires and fantasies in a sexy and unexpected way. Pay attention to what your partner enjoys and become selflessly dedicated to fulfilling their needs. By doing so, you may surprise yourselves and rekindle the passion in your relationship. If you're unsure of what to say, consider asking for clarification or let them know that you like to explore some new topics during your pillow talk. Thank you for sharing your story. Now, let me dive into the second story of the day. It revolves around a life changing event that I experienced. It all began when I received a phone call during my workday. At the time, my wife was 27 years old and we had been married for 6 years. She had been searching for a job for a year, but had only been able to earn a small income through her Etsy store where she sold her handmade crafts. I never wanted to pressure or coerce my wife into taking a job she despised. She had already endured a difficult childhood, and my main priority was to encourage and provide her with a sense of security. Our relationship felt great to me, although she would sometimes become depressed, likely due to the painful memories of her past. I made an effort to check in with her daily and ask what was weighing on her mind. However, more often than not, she would remain silent. And on this specific day, while I was at work, I received a call from the police. The call was from the police department of the neighboring county, and I was perplexed when I received it. The officer informed me that they had no other option but to detain my wife that day. Naturally, I was in a state of panic and demanded to know what had happened. According to the officer, they had received multiple reports about a woman who had set a car on fire in a residential area. Initially, I couldn't believe that my wife would be capable of such an act, but the officer confirmed her identity and informed me that they had her vehicle in their possession. I was utterly shocked and bewildered by the news. I inquired whether my wife had provided any statement, offered a reason for her presence at the scene, or provided an explanation for her actions. However, the officer informed me that she had refused to cooperate and remained uncommunicative. I then asked if she was permitted to call me, but instead, the officer requested that I visit in person to talk to her. I agreed, and upon arriving, I was escorted to the interview room where my wife was waiting. When she saw me, her hardened and angry expression softened, and she appeared defeated. She covered her face with her hands, and I asked her to explain what had happened. I needed answers because I couldn't comprehend the situation. She whispered that she couldn't tell me. When she told me that she couldn't disclose the reason due to being recorded, I asked her why. She claimed that I wouldn't want to know the truth. I protested and assured her that I wanted to know everything. Moreover, it seemed that she had been caught red-handed, so an explanation was necessary. As she sat up, her face appeared red and distressed. She disclosed that she had set fire to her ex-partner's car in response to his infidelity. After digesting this information, I asked her when this had occurred and why she was seeking revenge now. Although she appeared hesitant to provide further information, as her husband and given the circumstances, she had limited options. After taking deep breaths and shedding tears, she revealed that her ex-partner had cheated on her the previous night. I was taken aback and asked for clarification. She then explained that she had been seeing him for a few months while I was at work. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. I was certain that the police would enjoy witnessing this drama unfold. I asked her to confirm that she had been seeing someone else, behind my back, and when she discovered that he had cheated on her, she decided to set his car on fire in broad daylight. Upon hearing this, she appeared shattered. I expressed my disappointment and shame in being her husband. My wife's lack of self-control and responsibility led her to reveal her own affair. I made it clear to her that our relationship was over and left the police station, where I received sympathetic glances from some of the officers. My wife was in a state of panic and could only make calls with permission from the police. The next person she called was her grandmother, who raised her. However, her grandmother initially thought it was a scam call and did not look into it any further for 3 weeks. Eventually, she was contacted and paid my wife's bail by taking out a loan. This was just the beginning of my wife's consequences. After her release from jail, she repeatedly tried to contact me. I received 15 calls from her in one day and eventually answered. She pleaded with me to hear her out and meet her for coffee, saying that our 6-year relationship deserved another chance after the ordeal she had been through. I couldn't bring myself to laugh. Instead, I told her that our relationship was over and that it had been dead for some time. I had only stayed in the relationship out of good faith that she would remain faithful to me and not betray my trust by sleeping with another man. Not only did she betray me by going behind my back, but she also resorted to criminal activity by setting his car on fire. She cried and sobbed into the phone as if it was her lifeline. I reminded her that it was her decision to deceive me and that the truth always has a way of coming out. I was fortunate that her foolish actions exposed her wrongdoing. I wished her luck in her future endeavors, but she begged me not to hang up. Despite her pleas, I ended the call. For months later, her aunt contacted me. She contacted me and requested permission to retrieve my ex's belongings using a truck. I agreed, and she informed me that my ex's grandmother had passed away and her house was in foreclosure. As a result, my ex was moving in with her, and I would finally be rid of her subpar belongings from my house. Although I wondered how my ex was coping with the situation, I refrained from asking as I had started seeing someone new and didn't want to give any false hope. I hope my experience serves as a lesson to everyone not to betray their partner by cheating. Two things helped me cope with this challenging situation the most. The first was making a daily exercise routine a priority. Although I didn't feel like doing it initially, I pushed myself to exercise until I could feel the burn. This helped me release built up anger, feel more energetic, and improve my outlook. Instead of feeling down, I felt positive and capable. The second thing I did was prioritize self-care by doing things I enjoyed. Most of the time, I listened to music and danced to uplift my mood. At other times, I engaged in activities such as reading, watching TV, drawing, playing music, or going for a walk to take care of myself. I am deeply sorry to hear about your experience, OP. It must have been incredibly shocking to discover that your wife had been unfaithful for months and was arrested for setting a car on fire. It's a painful reminder that sometimes spouses cannot control or anticipate their partner's actions. Despite feeling like you know someone well, they may be struggling with hidden pain and emotions that can manifest in unpredictable ways. If something like this happens to you, please do not blame yourself. You cannot possibly control or anticipate someone else's thoughts or actions. More importantly, their disregard for you and the consequences of their actions does not determine your self-worth. It simply means that they were dealing with unresolved pain and emotions that they did not know how to handle, leading to poor decision making. As humans, we are all a combination of different faculties working together, and allowing something that is ultimately insignificant to influence how we treat others is a mistake that can have a significant impact. I wish you all the best in life. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.